Want to take a guess? My mother-in-law. She worked for me, so I had an invested interest, but that's just me. I'd like you to, when you can, please Google a company called Bellesa. I'm going to spell it out for you, B-E-L-L-E-S-A. Perhaps don't do it now, though, because what they do is they insure vibrators. Now, I know that's not the first thing somebody may get insured, but it does point to a trend where manufacturers are now self-insuring products. So just keep an eye on that. So the first thing most people get insured is, of course, their cell phone, these blocks over here. But what's going to happen when cell phones are no longer around? JP, will that ever happen? Absolutely. Right now, in a laboratory in the United States of America, probably filled with Chinese people, they're busy inventing the next best thing. Absolutely going to happen. In 15 years' time, people are not going to be dragging around these monstrosities. No, instead we're going to communicate how? With wearable devices, and about 10 years later, implants. Absolutely, that's how we're going to communicate. And I think that's both going to take away from the insurance industry, but also add a little bit. In this photo is a young man, and he's ordering a pizza. And he's doing it with nothing but the power of his brain, and obviously an implant, be it a simple implant on his face. Your brain vibrates ever so slowly when you're thinking, ever so slowly. Some less, some more. And this implant can pick up the senses, the vibrations through your skull. This is a real video, it is a real device, and the pizza actually arrived. So please check that out at some point, just Google it. Now, I had dinner the other day while waiting for, with a friend, and while we were waiting for the bill, he looked at his watch 7 times. Not because he was bored, at least I hope he wasn't bored, but because it kept flashing, kept having notifications. The same day, I was working at King Shaka Airport at Mugginbean. That's one of my favorite spots when I'm in KwaZulu-Natal. And next to me was a young Zulu couple having a date. It's on the right-hand side. And during the first hour, the gentleman took 2 phone calls, not 1, 2. And they lasted long enough for her to go through her social media at the same time. Now, I don't know about you, but if that had happened on a date with me, I would have left. She did leave, but she still left with him, so I was a little bit confused. So life is very different, and in the next 20 to 30 years or so, technology is going to become even more intrusive, if you can believe that. If you had to think about, if that's hard to think about or imagine, and I understand that, living in South Africa at the moment is absolutely chaotic. Don't fool yourself. And that's before we even start to consider Industry 4.0. Now, technology changes and shapes human habits. So will the subscription and the circular economy. These are going to influence the insurance sector, which has, for all intents and purposes, pretty much been the same for hundreds of years. In fact, the first type of insurance was way back in the day when we started forming little tribes and we started to stockpile materials for bad weather. That was the first type of insurance. Shared risk. In 2025, if you're looking for ideas on future things to insure, I've already hinted at 2 things. Future communications, augmented reality, and of course, basic services, because they are affected by extreme weather events in South Africa especially. In order to prepare for these, you need time together. So these events are fantastic. But I understand there's about 800 or more brokers, so maybe use some technology. I don't suggest one WhatsApp group, though that would be madness. Do a deep dive into today's suggestions. I would like to give you a little bit of background about myself, because before today, I know none of you knew who I was. Any of you? No? Okay, that's fine. That's right, I don't feel bad. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a business and environmental technologist. What's that, JP? Well, it's basically a career I made up. I study people, nature, technology, and basically the relationship between those entities, and then I try to consult on how to make that more sustainable and in many ways more ethical. Very, very important. I never, ever tell people what to do. I only share ideas. A great deal of my time is used on research and writing. I am actually a writer, which is why I've got notes. And I frequently visit about 18 different subjects. But basically anything that can change the future of your home or your business, I'm going to study it. Everyone, kindly take out your cell phones and switch them back on, as if you had switched them off. No, really, I need you to do this, please. Thank you. We're not going to carry on until everyone's got their phones up in the air. So there we go. All right. Thank you. Switch them on, go to Google, and I'd like you to please Google my name, which is incredibly lengthy, Jean-Pierre Murray-Kline, Jean-Pierre-Murray-Kline. All right. So there's a lot of things you're going to find on the internet about me. I'd like you to please find the website, jeanpierremurraykline.co.za, and give that a click. Put your phones up in the air so I know it's done. Everyone, got the whole crew at the back, not doing that. Oh, they're sharing phones. Shared economy, that's great. All right. Okay, everyone with your phones in the air, thank you very much. You've just helped me with my search engine optimization with a positive incoming click. But what I'd like you to do, at a later stage, you can have a look at the About page. The About page will basically tell you that I grew up in a pretty poor family, but it was a very large family nonetheless. I'm the oldest of 9 children that we know of. There are more, we just don't know from my dad's side. It will tell you that I grew up with a very rare eye condition called Duane's eye syndrome, which is why I wear these nerd glasses. And it will also tell you that I started to work at an incredibly young age. And by the age of 19, I had invoiced my first R1 million. So since then, I've done many projects, specifically e-projects, and I've also been very lucky enough to travel to at least 100 cities around the world. And I've consulted either directly or indirectly in 300 types of industries. Please trust me when I say there's very little that I haven't done. Right, but what I want to share with you quickly is the menu tab, articles and press. Please give that a click. And then click on the, I must do it as well, sorry, I'm not even listening to myself. There we go. And then click on the submenu item, articles. Now this page is very important. I'm going to go through it quickly, and it's going to share some technological and some political and environmental subjects which I cover. And the point I want to get across immediately is I do not steer away from things that politicians or perhaps economists often do. So if you scroll with me, and we'll do this as quickly as possible, there's something about digital transformation in South Africa, very important. AI in South Africa today, that's also important because the way things work in South Africa is not always the way it works in the world. Let's scroll a little bit further down. More about AI. There's one about there's lots of space to mine. This was interesting. It was a research campaign I did for the mining in Durban. They basically thought we're going to run out of minerals on Earth, so they've asked me to research and consult on how to mine asteroids. So that may interest you. Perhaps. I'll give you money for P, also an interesting subject that was co-authored with a friend of mine who works at UCT. There's an article about me and Hello Peter. I've taken them to the Competition Commission. You'd have to read about that. Then there's a bedtime story, which is all about environmentalism. The first glob of goo on the planet, all the way to where we are now, and also what's going to happen to the planet in the next 4 billion years, if any of you are planning on still being around then. Very interesting article. And if you scroll a little bit further down, there's one which I like to highlight, boycotting LGBTQ. Oh, these aren't even my reading glasses, sorry, excuse me. And this phrase has gotten longer and longer. Boycotting LGBTQIA+. Very topical with what Donald Trump is doing at the moment. I'll give you 50 Rand, will you behave better? That is where I suggested that we pay domestic workers 50 Rand more, and the internet basically blew up. There's an article about Russia. Very interesting country. It's one of the few countries where the sun is both setting and rising at the same time. They also have more museums and more theaters than any other country. And then also our relationship with them, and it involves Zuma. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, Ledeka, the inspiring, very important article and trend in South Africa. Our students are in tremendous debt. Anyone here still paying off their student debt? No, maybe we're a bit shy, but that's a very a topical subject at the moment. And if you click read more articles, it will take you to another page, and it will also cover things such as the smartest country in Africa, and I think that is Rwanda. And I think there's another one about, also, well, there's lots of other interesting ones. The point is, I hope you can see I study a variety of subjects. But what can I share with you today? What's important for you? Will insurance be around in the future? Okay, let me ask another one. Will insurance brokers be around in the future? It should be a resounding yes. Okay, all right. Do you feel like you've got job security is basically what I'm asking. So you do you? Okay, what's that like? Must be nice. I was so happy when Vili picked me for this talk because I knew I can pay my insurance premiums this month, so it's fantastic. Now, there's two ways people can plan for their future and their career. The one is called forecasting. And forecasting is when management sits with a bunch of data, which hasn't changed much, and from that they can extrapolate what's going to happen to the business for the near future. For example, if Helen Ziller enjoys eating Kellogg's All-Bran Flakes, and she does, and she has eaten them for the last 10 years, she purchases 2 boxes a month, Pick and Pay, who are currently future planning at the moment for their future, can extrapolate and forecast that they can expect an income of 175 Rand, give or take, for the foreseeable future. So that's very helpful. But the problem with forecasting is it makes no provisions for any significant alterations in data. And that is where scenario planning comes in. And that's the second way to try to predict the future. And it looks at potential and likely changes. And then it normally suggests 4 probable incomes, depending on levels of severity. It's okay to laugh at our politicians. Recently, Zilla and Gayton McKenzie have been spotted on Sea Point Promenade running together. They're sharing their fitness experience on X. Now, from this new data, a scenario planner at Pick and Pay could consider how this might affect their income in future. Will Zilla change her diet in order to get more energy? Or will she change her product? What's she going to have to do to keep up with Gayton McKenzie? Will she perhaps just eat more of the same cereal? So basically 3 potential scenarios, all of which Pick and Pay can then either work out, do they need to prepare for less income or the same income? Now this might sound like a game, but scenario planning is a very serious business. And it was invented by a gentleman called Herman Kahn. And he came up with this practice while working at the Rand Corporation in the 1950s. Primarily focusing on the potential of nuclear war. Very serious. Unfortunately, in 2025, again, we are worried about wars. Scenario planning was later popularized by Royal Dutch Shell in the 1970s. And in South Africa, the most famous scenario planner we've had is Mr. Clem Santa. And he became famous for work at Anglo America, and of course, his series of books called Foxy Trilogy. I'd like everyone to leave today with a keen desire to try and change. But I know many of you feel that you can't make any significant change in your life. Sometimes people they struggle to identify the catalysts of change, or the other side of the same coin. They're overwhelmed by all the influences. When it comes to technology, most people believe that South Africa or Africans have no ability to lead. Many believe that perhaps we prefer to be led, like sheep. Some believe that we prefer to keep our populace uneducated, so they're easily persuaded. Technology, ladies and gentlemen, has leveled that playing field. If you share the view that we're not leaders or innovators, you would be very wrong, because Africans actually have a tremendous history of innovation, inventions, and just being clever. We sorted out mathematics on this continent. We did it. Iron smeltering. We did the first heart and penis transplant. Fortunately, not from the same man. Would have been a horrible day. 3D printed prosthetic limbs, the creepy crawly, M-Pesa, digital monies from Africa. We had internet banking before Canada. Computers for the blind, oil from coal, we came up with that. The Royfolk attack helicopter, PayPal, South African invented it, we won't mention his name today. Thumbs up payment system, Q20 lubricant, coffee, an African innovation, first conceptualized to keep our politicians awake during Parliament. Water purification, nanotechnology. Africans came up with that. The malaria vaccine, we came up with that. The list is pretty endless. Unfortunately, as all you know, so is the list of issues we have to deal with. Now, while these innovations can cost money to develop, and they do, also cost money to implement, they can also make a tremendous amount of money. And you're a business, so that should interest you. Also of interest is there's lots of entities and business and people very interested in investing in innovation. There's a particular insurance company in South Africa who do not like to wear clothes. I'm not going to mention who they are. They've recently raised $38 million US in a Series B round to automate and expand their product. It's not even their money. Lemfi, a fintech startup, also in Africa, they secured 24 million. No, that was 53 million. Enco Education, also from Africa, they secured 24 million to expand their networks of schools on the continent. And education is the biggest concern for me. So this is all really good stuff. Now, technology and innovation can be used as a catalyst for change. However, technology just for the sake of it is often a mistake. When we implement tech or we try to innovate just for the sake of it, we sometimes get bamboozled, everyone. We get caught up in the hype. And then we end up with things like e-tolls. When we innovate, we must keep in mind the true recipients of the benefits. If the objective is just to use technology just because we can, we're making a mistake. However, if you want to use technology to alleviate real problems in South Africa, like poverty or inequality, you must not forget the root cause. And in South Africa, the root cause to most of our problems is it's political. And South Africa is a young democracy, everyone. And the disasters that we're experiencing today, including the water crisis, and it's a major crisis, I would have suggested as a probable scenario if I'd been around at the height of apartheid. Of course, I was only 9 years old when we had our first democratic vote. My point is, change is never linear. It's almost like a swinging pendulum, and with each swing, we get a little bit better until we reach the desired equilibrium. A maturing democracy with good governance are what we need to tackle our very serious social ills, our human behavior. And there's a lot we have to work on here. We don't even respect ourselves enough not to litter. How many times have you seen rubbish thrown out of a car window? Do you know which country they don't litter in on this continent? Rwanda. Absolutely. Have you been? Who said that? Oh, okay. Please go and watch the movie Hotel Rwanda. Technology is going to boost our robust financial sector, create more efficient and accessible justice system, and once people learn how to use social media like human beings and not like attack dogs with no ramifications, and once countries learn to regulate the digital platforms they use without favor, our media and our society are going to gain a tool which is far more powerful than any publishing house or media house. Law, media, and the finance sector. They've been drivers of setting our country and our society's progress, as well as our moral compass in many ways, since the first inception of the Republic. But how is this progress going to be achieved? That's the big question. I could name drop a few technologies. I could mention blockchain, because that helps with transparency, or AI to filter out political shenanigans. But absolutely nothing is going to work if there's no will to change. There has to be a will to change. Who woke up this morning with a will to change? That's the problem. The will to change is very, very important. And I've actually been struggling with something myself, so I'm going to just give up quickly a second. So I tried to give up the other day, and I've been using patches. Does anyone have a lighter? Sorry, just quickly. Oh. What?
I mentioned smoking only outside.
Oh. Why? Is it illegal? Are you worried about the fire? It's just a joke. I'm not really going to do it. My point is, we know what's wrong for us. There's data to tell us that smoking is bad for us, yes? But here's a question for the floor. What's killed more people in the same period of time? Cigarettes, COVID, or diabetes? Diabetes. That's what the data said. But if I just poured out a chocolate, she wouldn't be shouting at me, would she? We've got the data. That's the will that's very, very important. So while some of you are still trying to work out how to use ChatGPT, I want you to not forget that right now every nerd and inventor is trying to get AI, search engine algorithms, humanoids. They're trying to get it to be more like humans. And I call this the man in the mirror moment, because these technologies are reflecting the worst of humanity back onto us. And I want you to be aware of that. Racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, capitalism, socialism, crocs. Do you know how much data is out there on how to steal something? Google it sometimes. Or how to hate. It's by far the majority. All future technologies are going to have levels of autonomous learning, and this means in order to make technology better, we need to improve ourselves. The digital footprint we make needs to be a better example. Our soft skills need to be worked on before we worry about hardware. The AI revolution has a lot to learn from Ubuntu in South Africa.